And we're live.
All right, I guess I'll take it away. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our ILA workshop, Skill Building and Study Skills, where today we're going to learn about how we learn, and not only that, basically explain how we can use learning styles to go beyond just study skills, how we can apply them to regular life lessons and becoming more well-rounded people. So here we go. Okay, next slide. All right, here's our presenters. Kate Isidro, I believe, will be here tomorrow. For me, I'm Rob DeMarco, everyone. And we also have Catherine Conway. Okay, next slide. So, learning. We basically wanted to focus on the 7 learning styles and figuring out how we learn. Because it can be, as you see in this one girl, picture of this one girl, it can be a daunting task sometimes. It can be overwhelming and sometimes make draw into ourselves, try all different types of ways of learning and figuring out how we're going to get through the next lesson. So next slide. Right. Oxford Dictionary defines learning by the acquisition of knowledge or skills through experience, study, or by being taught. Next slide. But we know that it's much deeper than that, obviously. Learning has driven everything, not just how we study and how we go to school, but pretty much every human activity, really, if you think about surrounds learning. Our desire to see what's next. Okay, Catherine, you want to take it away for our objectives, and we'll go into the 7 styles?
Sure. So the objectives that we're going to be covering today are we're going to identify the different types of learning styles. We'll be able to figure out and discuss what learning styles are right for you. And then we're going to apply learning styles to skills not only related to studying, but to other skills in general as well. So these are just a few of the learning styles. We have visual, auditory, verbal, physical, logical, social, and interpersonal. And I mean, I know for me personally, it's a kind of a mix of a bunch of them. So we're just going to figure out what's right for you. The first one is visual and spatial. This is seeing it to understand it. So you could use diagrams, colors and shapes, flowcharts. You're really just taking information and you're seeing it, and that's how it's going to stick and how you're going to learn it. Rob, you want to do the next one?
Sure. Second one, we have oral or auditory. This is more, learning through by hearing, such as like listening to recorded lectures. The connection in the brain from the ear to mind is strongest, and it will evoke emotional responses that will help you associate what you were listening to and learn it a little easier than you would if you were visual. All right, next one.
All right, up next we have verbal and linguistic. You're like using the words themselves, written or spoken. So you can use mnemonic devices like this, like for example, for PEMDAS, remembering with like the math, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Just using mnemonic devices, scripts, and role play with yourself. You can kind of talk your way through a concept using like language to kind of teach yourself whatever you need to be taught.
All right, now we have the physical and kinesthetic one, which is actually really interesting because this one, when you see some people acting things out, trying to work it through with their physical bodies, their hands are flying all over, or they have maybe a group where they act out a concept. Basically, the pathway between the muscles and the brain will be strongest with this, and they talk about that muscle memory, and that's how people will retain knowledge if you're this learning style, and also breathing techniques and relaxation methods will also help you concentrate, focus better on what you're trying to learn.
Numbers mean nothing without a unit or knowing what they're associated with, right? So we want the columns labeled, so time and position, that's good. But again, what was the time measured in seconds, hours, minutes? So that's where we need the unit in seconds. Same thing with position. We know that that's a measure of distance. It could have been yards, it could have been feet, but this says
Oh my. All right. Time out 1 second.
It's okay.
I think you're all fabulous and I love you.
Thanks.
And we're back, I think.
Should we just continue from where we were? Okay.
Yeah. Actually, you know what, Amaya, would you like us to start from the beginning for you? We're not too deep into everything, but I certainly don't want you to miss anything.
No, this is fine. We can start here.
All right.
Yeah, it's okay. Thank you. I'm watching.
Alrighty, well, up next we have the logical and mathematical way of learning. So this is for somebody who's good with numbers. You're able to use numbers to recognize patterns and in like a logical way. You're able to use lists of concepts extracted from the material, like numbering things out, making lists, separating systems and how they work together to make a whole. So like engine diagrams, using logic to make associations, so like associating different concepts together. I feel like I do this with my notes too. I'll usually write everything down and then I'll color code it with a different color. So numbered patterns, colors, etc. And then finally, trying to understand why things might be connected. So understanding what numbers, letters and numbers stand for in equations.
And then we have the social and interpersonal style of learning. Now this can, where you work in a group and connect, as a good sounding board where you can bounce ideas off of each other. Role playing is a good way to act out concepts and understand them. And also using flashcards if you have a partner. It's some people learn better together, and that's it.
All right, so solitary / interpersonal. So I feel like this is kind of how a lot of us are doing things right now while we're remote. This is for people that prefer to work alone. The connections between concepts happen.
Are we frozen?
Was I frozen? No? Okay. Connections between concepts happen within are associated with thoughts and feelings. So for somebody who wants to use the solitary interpersonal learning style, you're going to be studying by yourself, somewhere quiet with no interruptions, somebody who's like keeping to a study schedule, keeping a journal of what you're learning, connect with emotions to what you're learning, using concepts and personal experiences and interests, and modeling the behavior of studying subjects and concepts and personifying them if necessary. So taking what you're learning and kind of using what like works with you for you in order to learn and remember the information. Do we have any questions?
About any of the styles or anything?
So you mentioned, so it is like probable that you could have like a little bit of both, a little bit of 3 or 4 of the styles, right?
Yeah, most definitely. Because I feel like for me personally, I usually like to start with the information, just kind of reading it and learning it by myself. And then once I feel like I know it, I'll usually get together with a few friends and we'll talk through it. And that just helps to further like solidify the information in your mind. How about you, Rob?
I'm sorry, her question got cut off a little bit, but I think she asked, like, can you use more than one style at a time? And I would say definitely, I think I do that. I find my head actually swimming at times between visual. I like to draw things out, but then I'll act them out in the kinesthetic way as well. So I would say definitely they can converge and the lines blur between the styles as well.
You gotta find what helps it stick for you, because there's a lot of information to remember sometimes, and just however you can get it into your head, whatever works best.
All right, shall we move on? No other questions? All right, we came up with these discussion questions. So what learning skills do you think you possess, and how do you integrate them into your studies? And then how do you engage your preferred learning styles outside of your academics, going beyond just study skills? And then let's come up with some examples from everyday life where you could use tactics from a particular learning style to achieve a non-academic. I guess so.
I think we're losing you a little bit, Rob.
Yeah, you're going in and out a little bit.
Yeah, it's cutting in, yeah. I think it froze now.
We can hear you, but we can't. You're like frozen. Your picture's frozen.
Cutting in and out a little bit.
Yeah. I can say though, for myself, actually, like, interestingly, I guess my learning style is the logical. That's one of them, the logical and mathematical. But I like hate math. Like I'm very bad at math. But I guess I would consider myself to be like a logical person, and I do like to make. I make a lot of lists, or I like to do outlines of information. So I think an example from my everyday life is that like I make a list for like everything. Like I love making my grocery list. I separate it by like sections in the store, and it's like very like particular. So I think that learning style does translate a lot into my everyday life, because I like things to be organized.
Definitely, I agree. I feel like whenever I'm learning a new skill, or even like I feel like more often than not, especially in the past few months, it's been writing down a recipe, like just writing down everything that I need, the different steps that I'll take. It's definitely super helpful. And visually too. I feel like a lot of times, like I know a couple months ago, in the midst of quarantine, I had to learn how to cut a certain kind of fruit. So I look at the YouTube video for how to cut like a certain kind of fruit. And that's just like a simple example, but just, another way of like how to learn how to do something.
I'm definitely the visual type. I'm constantly drawing out charts and diagrams for myself, and it almost blends with like the logic. Like I can use the logical learning style, but I need to actually see it and like draw it out, like with little boxes and arrows going every which way. This leads to this. This leads to that. Definitely not a math person, like at all. But and I definitely do the kinesthetic. I'm definitely moving all around. For some reason, just the muscles kind of get everything else going. So that would definitely be my three styles, I would say. All right. I guess I'll start the second question. How do you engage? Or is there, oh wait, did Mila answer yet? I think I'm pronouncing her name. All right, I'll just move on. Engaging preferred learning styles outside of mathematics, outside of academics. Well, one of my hobbies and aspirations is writing. So for like storylines and plots, I'll constantly be drawing visual charts and how plot lines and how one event will lead to the next for a story. I'll also do it if, like, say I'm trying to repair something, or even like something as stupid as like rearrange a room or something. I'll like draw out an actual like diagram of the room and use that to go off of. I definitely like seeing it and Oh, that's me. Hello, you guys.
I feel like I'm pretty similar. I feel like I learn in a couple different ways. I feel hearing something first is definitely helpful to hear it. And then usually after I hear it, I'll either write it down or look at something visually and make a list. And I feel like even outside of learning for school, especially with new skills too, I feel like I have to see and hear something and then, you know, write it down in order for that skill to stick and in order for me to get better.
I think my this kind of relates to like me like making lists a lot, but I love having my planner, which I guess is part of the logical, like I like to write everything down. I don't know what style like writing things down would be. I don't know if that would be kinesthetic because you're like moving. Yeah. Well, I really like to write things down as I listen to them too. But no, like writing things down, crossing things off is like is just so satisfying. So that's something outside of academics that I do that it translates over. Yeah.
Ooh, can I say something? I have to agree with you, Natalie, with the whole planner. I actually just bought a planner like not too long. I guess before, you know, the semester started, I just bought a planner.
Yay.
And I have to like, it's better having everything like written down and like you said, being able to like highlight it off and say I did that, everything's done. Even though like this week, this has been like stressful, like trying to figure out everything. Like this one class, my chemistry lab was like a little off the hook, but I printed like we have our new like all the new due dates are on here. So now that I have like something like this, like you said, you can like highlight it off and then so like you said.
The best
It's like that like aesthetic style. Wait, what'd you say?
I said the best feeling is having everything crossed off your list.
Yes. So I think that's the best way for me. Had to chime in there.
Alrighty, I'll take this one. So learning styles and skill building. So taking these learning styles and using them outside of just, you know, using them for like school stuff. When you know what your learning style is, you can use it to learn new skills as well. So like I said earlier, I learned how to cut some different kinds of fruit using the YouTube videos. I feel like I write down recipes all the time. Multiple intelligences, learning styles are given fluid learning styles are fluid, shift given the circumstances. So it depends on what it is that you're learning. You could be learning, you know, the fruit and the recipe. So like for cutting a fruit, I would watch a video, and for learning a new recipe, I would write it down. And experiential learning, doing will transform experience into knowledge. And it's all about, you know, using the skills that you're learning and using them over and over again. The more that you practice, the better you'll be.
I wanted to dive, Michael, if you go, but I wanted to dive just a little bit deeper into a couple of these if I could. Multiple intelligence theory, that's from Gardner. It says that we are not born with all the intelligences that we will use or learning styles that we will use in a lifetime, nor do we use the same ones all of our life. They can depend on where we are. Like schools, for example, will like heavily value like mathematical and logical or linguistics over other forms, say kinesthetic. Gardner actually had 8 learning styles. There's the 7 that we talked about, but there was also the naturalist intelligence, which is more like a connectivity with nature, understanding of just the way the world works, animals, even up to and including celestial mechanics. He also suggested that there may be a spiritual, moral, and existential intelligences out there as well that we may not understand. There were also a couple in that article. There were actually a couple careers that he pointed out for each one. Like if you're more visual oriented, you might best be a pilot or an artist. It might be a field you would pursue. or if you're more linguistic, lawyers and authors would fall under that. Math and logic would be good accountants or analysts. Kinesthetics could be like athletes and mechanics. Oral learners, be musicians or sound engineers. Interpersonal learners will be good at like sales or social work. And intrapersonal learners might be best at like therapists or even some like religious vocations. And then the naturalist, that eighth style that Gardner mentions, is would be like the natural sciences, like geometry, or I'm sorry, geology and astrophysics. And then about this experiential learning, where we transform our experience into knowledge. The Cobb and Cobb article, they say that we never stop learning. It's more the process. It's kind of then the destination. It's what's, like I said in the beginning, what's driven us to spread across the globe, and eventually someday into the stars, the desire to see what's over that next horizon. When we study something, we work at it repeatedly and creates like new neural pathways in our brain, and that's how we develop knowledge. There's rooted in the experiential learning theory that the article talks about, and it again emphasizes the process and not the outcome. Learning and relearning, resolving conflicts that may arise. It's a way of transforming that manifest into functioning, the total functionings of the person, and basically ensure we learn by doing. So if you want to pursue something, the best thing to do is just to dive in and do it, rather than try and like learn about it ahead of time or something. Just, you gotta live it, you gotta do it. I thought that was a really interesting thing. I just wanted to throw in there.
Did you want me to talk about learning styles and leadership? All right, so leaders are lifelong learners. So I feel like I've definitely experienced this in some of the leadership positions that I've taken too. Regardless of whenever you hop into something, there's always something new to learn. It could be anything. It could be starting a new job. It could be leading a team, being a captain of a team, anything. Like, just part of it is once you get to the top, there's always something new that you can learn from being in a leadership position. And knowing learning styles helps you to recognize others' learning styles. So I feel like I'm a tutor this semester too. So having been a tutor and worked with other students, kind of seeing how what their learning styles are, especially if they're different from my own learning styles, just knowing how to adjust and what that looks like definitely helps to lead and to learn.
So what skills would you be interested in developing, and how could you engage your preferred learning styles to do so? You want to answer that first, Catherine? We'll go around.
Sure, that sounds good. So I feel like a skill that I'm constantly trying to develop and just learn more is, I feel like I'm taking a lot of tough nursing classes, and I feel like, I've taken a bunch before and I'm taking a bunch now, and it's just a matter of kind of learning how to adjust to each course. Every course is different, so just kind of figuring out how each course works, what you have to do, which is the same for any kind of a class too. Just figuring out what works for you, how to be successful. And sometimes your learning style will have to change. Not all the information can be learned the same way. So you just kind of have to figure out what works for you. So we're about 3 weeks into the semester. This is week 4, I think. So we're getting there slowly but surely.
How about you, Natalie?
I think I was thinking of an answer when Catherine was talking. And I think, interestingly, so a skill that I want to develop is to be more flexible, just like in life, and not so rigid, because I can tend to, if I make a plan, that's what I want to do. Even if it becomes really clear that it's not gonna work, that's just I'm just kind of like that. And so I think it would be engaging in my preferred learning style, which would be the logical one, would probably not be what I would want to do. I might want to look into a different learning style to learn how to be less not less logical, but like more flexible and more relaxed, I guess, when it comes to certain things. So maybe learning a different style would be helpful for me to develop that skill.
Amaya, would you like to weigh in at all? All right. You know what I always thought would be really cool would be to have one of those adaptive memories or like photographic memory to like just be able to read something and just instantly remember it like that. And I think kind of like what Natalie just touched on is it would be embracing a learning style that I absolutely hate. I think more like the mathematical, logical, just to be, you know, so I think because it's a challenge is why I would want to try and develop it. Not only would it be, you know, a useful tool for going, you know, for college and beyond, it, you know, it would just be really cool to have that ability. I would think so. All right, just some tips for becoming a better leader. You want to lean on your strengths. You know, you want to know what you're best suited for, and if you don't know something, ask for help. The best leader is someone who can, you know, admit when they need help when they can't do it themselves. Finding your routine as well. Identify the practices related to your preferred learning styles and what work for you. Just constant repetition, like the Cobb and Cobb article talks about it. It's just that's how we've almost forged knowledge like a piece of iron almost. And don't be afraid to be creative. Try different things. Explore. And just become a learner. Learn about things that you may not necessarily be interested about. And kind of like we were all talking about in the discussion, I think we all combine different learning styles that, you know, all throughout our lives. I don't think we lean too much on ones that we as we should. So, all right, next. And there are references. So if there's any more questions, and if not, we'll let I guess we'll let RJ take it away. Been looking forward to this all day, by the way.
Okay, am I up? Wonderful. I apologize, everyone. I'm getting over being sick. I'm RJ Portella, and I am the learning specialist in the Learning Center. I want to thank you for having me. It's great to hear about this. Learning styles are a tricky thing to navigate, but they are not nearly impossible as long as you are armed with some information. And to get that information, you can come to the Rutgers Camden Learning Center. So I'm going to put this up here right now, and it's just a brief couple of slides. The Learning Center is located in Armitage Hall on the second floor, although mostly we're online right now, but you'll find one or two of us in the office right now during the time of remote learning. And if you take a look at the bottom, if you search Learning Center for Rutgers Camden, you'll find us in Google very quickly. Our office email is at the bottom there, rclc@camden.rutgers.edu. So the Learning Center team, that's Dr. Gina Nuruddin-Little, that's our director. You see me in the middle there, and there's Emma, our Learning Center assistant. And our mission is to help you by providing an array of academic support services. And I'll get to some of those in a moment, but one of the things we definitely do is learning styles to help you figure out and determine what is your preferred learning style. And when I say preferred learning style, I know Catherine and a couple of people mentioned it before. Overwhelmingly, people do not have only one learning style. It is usually a mishmash. And not only that, it evolves as we evolve as students, as human beings, as educators, as professionals. So I encourage you not to think that you're only in one category. Chances are there is a mix across the board. So some of the support services we have, and I'm going to tailor this to learning styles. Number one, course-specific tutoring. You can come in and meet with a student who has already taken the class before, got at least a B+, is recommended by the professor, and they can help tutor you through the content. And when you sit with that student, obviously it would be on WebEx or Zoom right now, you can ask the student if they know about their learning styles and exactly what your preferred learning style is, at least you'll have more information of different techniques that you can try. We also have number 2, peer-led review sessions. Those usually pop up in about the 4th or 5th week of the semester when we figure out which groups and cohorts are struggling with which classes. We basically have small group tutoring, which are review sessions, which is even more of a chance for you to connect with another tutor or connect with your classmates and find out what study techniques work for them, whether it's making a mind map or doing flashcards or using any kind of visual aids, or if they do it orally by listening to lectures over and over, or if it's kinesthetic. Some people just like to write out the notes or to type them. So the whole point is you're getting a lot of insight from people who have either already done it or who are trying to figure it out themselves. It's always a learning process. Remember, just because we're on this side of the webinar or that someone is sitting on one side of a desk does not mean they have all the answers. It is always a constant learning process. Okay. In terms of learning specialists, normally there are 2. I'm the only one right now, but hopefully that'll change soon, but I'm here to help you. And what I do is I provide individualized academic coaching. So I will work one-on-one with you to help you develop your skills. Some of those skills involve learning styles. So there is a VARK test. VARK stands for visual, audio, reading, writing, and kinesthetic. And also, as one of the slides mentioned before, there is a cold inventory that you answer about 10 questions, and it places you on a grid whether you enjoy more theory, which is more cerebral, versus all the way down the line to active experimentation. Like, for example, I am someone who loves to actively experiment with something, and I usually make a bunch of mistakes along the way, but it's the way I prefer to learn. One of the biggest and most significant pieces of advice that I can give you is, remember, as we said in one of the slides before, learning styles are fluid. I remember back in my master's program, I had 5 semesters in a row where I had to take a learning style test every single semester, and every semester it changed. It was a little more kinesthetic, a little more visual. Auditory was usually at the low end of it, because I am definitely someone, as I think Natalie mentioned before, and I know Catherine did, I like to make to-do lists and I like to cross them out. And I thought for the longest time that by looking at it, I was a visual learner, and it turns out I'm not. It was the kinesthetic of writing it down that actually locked it in for me. That was like fascinating to me. So I encourage you to let it be fascinating to you. I also encourage students at the beginning of each semester, you might want to take one of those short quizzes to see how you have evolved as a student. There are no right or wrong answers to learning styles. It's just a discovery journey. So we're here at the Learning Center, ready to help you. Those tests do not take long at all. And then you can absolutely have a follow-up visit with me where we talk about your results and how we link them specifically to your classes so that you can succeed in your own individual way. And that's all I've got. Thank you, Leadership Academy.
Alrighty, well, thank you guys so much for learning how to learn with us.
Of course.
Are there any other
Thank
questions
you.
before we end our time?
I think
Amaya, any burning questions you want to ask?
No, I don't have any questions right now. Thank you for all the information. I've learned a lot.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.